Hey friends, Jill Heinerth here. I just got back from an amazing Liveaboard dive trip to Truck Lagoon. And I thought this was a good opportunity to share some of my thoughts about liveaboard diving and a few tips that you might not have thought about for your enjoyment and also for your safety on board. So let's start first with insurance. Insurance is important. You need medical insurance, you need diving related medical insurance like DAN or Dive Assure that will support recompression therapy that might not be in your normal medical policy. You may, depending on the location you're going to, need evacuation and repatriation insurance, rescue insurance. So when you're in a remote part of the world and maybe you break your leg, you may need a medical transport to get home. And that can be extremely costly. So there are special plans by companies like Global Rescue that can support you in that endeavor and also assure that you are accompanied by someone, an advocate. It could be your family, it could be a dive buddy, but someone to travel with you home. So insurance is important. And then, of course, you must also consider, do you want insurance on your gear if it's lost either from the boat or lost luggage? That's also important. When you pack, luggage is a big deal because of the small allowances that we have on commercial airplanes these days. So oftentimes you're very limited in what you can take. So pack smart and small and light. So I pack very minimal clothes, and I tend to stick to things that are anti-odor, antimicrobial, like merino wool. Lightweight merino wool is actually great in the heat, but there are some other synthetic fabrics that work in the same way, so you don't have to wash them as often. And I always pack a very small dry bag and some of the sheet soaps. So when I need to do my laundry, I don't have to pay someone to do that, if that's even available on a liveaboard that you're on. Just stick your clothes inside the laundry bag, put a bit of water in there, put one of your soap sheets, and then kind of leave it on deck to, bounce around, like clip it to a railing or something, and the boat vibration will agitate the laundry, and then all you have to do is rinse it and hang it when you're done. So pack smart and light. Third thing, bring some, whoops, something happened to my face here. There we go. Third thing, first aid essentials. Most boats will have a first aid kit, of course, but they're in a very remote location, and restocking that and keeping it up to date may be questionable. So you need some basics yourself. I always bring a course of antibiotics, antidiarrheals, seasickness medication. But the most important thing is antibiotic ointment and good Band-Aids, so that if you get a skin abrasion, you can properly treat it and guard from infection, because infections are really, really common when you're diving in tropical waters. So a decent, well thought out first aid kit can be a dive saver, a trip saver. Also, bring a medications list. Type this out. Put it in your phone, or even physically type it out and print it. If you're taking any prescription drugs, you want to have the name of the prescription, not just like the brand name, but the actual drug name, because you're going to another country and they might not be familiar with that particular brand. Even something as simple as like Tylenol, right? Well, what is Tylenol? So the name of the medication, the dosage that you're taking it, the frequency, the reason why you're using it, and if possible, keep it all in its original packaging. Although that might be a little bit bulky, it solves from issues with customs and immigrations type inspections that are like, why do you have these unmarked pills with you? Dive gear. So think about how to best protect your dive gear in travel, but also to protect it from loss or theft in transit. So I make an inventory of everything I'm taking on a little Excel spreadsheet and which bag it's going into. I take a photograph of the actual bag. In case it's lost, I can show the people that are searching for my luggage. I put a tracker in there, like an AirTag or another device. I also put a big piece of tape with the destination airport code on it. So when I go to truck, it says TKK on it. So that's my ultimate destination. And then rip that off and put on a fresh one for coming home. If you're taking a rebreather, like labeling of like critical devices is kind of important. Like there is a TSA, border control spreadsheet that we've made to inform border agents that this is life support equipment. Don't mess with it. It's totally allowable for safe transport. And you can even print out some stickers that say safe for airline transport to put on some of your critical items if you know that they are indeed safe and within the limits perhaps of lithium battery weights that you're allowed to take on an aircraft. Generally, unattached batteries that are not in the actual object that they work for have to be carried in carry-on. And if it's like a big light, it can be put in general, this will always change, so please check. In general, in your checked baggage, as long as the battery is secure and it cannot be accidentally enabled. So the switch has to have a lock position, an airline safe position, or a cap over the contacts. So be very careful about those larger batteries that you might be taking. Then when you choose the luggage that you want to take, like again, you have to think about how much weight you can take. Some of these hard cases may weigh 15 to 25 pounds already, and that could be up to half of the allowance if you're taking a 50-pound bag. So get creative. Like I use a Fourth Element duffel bag that's very, very sturdy on the outside. And then I put smaller pieces of gear inside protective, lightweight ammo cases made of plastic that I put inside the duffel bag. So the soft goods, the wetsuits, the things like that, they don't need protection. But, my dive masks and computers can go in these ammo cases inside the same bag. And then I have a really handy waterproof transport once I'm on board. But you might also find something simple like maybe a cooler is a good way to carry some of your gear. However, you can manage the weight and the protection together and have something that's useful on the other end and also stowable is important. Your bags may be stowed like in your cabin that's already pretty small. So if they can collapse and stuff underneath your berth, great. Or they might be taken ashore if they're larger hard cases like a suitcase and they have capacity to store those for you. On board, footwear, or think about that before you travel so you can minimize the footwear that you have to take. So on board, you might be shoeless because that's quite common on liveaboard boats. But if you want to go ashore for excursions or hikes, you may need real shoes, even something that can handle rough terrain. So you might have a little pair of flip-flops, and you might have a pair of hiking boots that you wear on the plane because they're heavy. But do think also about culturally appropriate footwear. Like if you're going into a church to have a visit, you may not be able to wear flip-flops or, of course, bare feet. Luggage type. So, whoops, I screwed that up. Fire safety. Fire safety. This is the number one, and there's been a lot of talk about this online recently because there's been quite a shocking number of liveaboard dive boats that have caught fire in the middle of the night and sank. Quite often they say these are engine room fires, but that engine room fire may have started because of improper charging on board because so many people have lithium batteries right now, and we may be overloading the circuits of these, not well-purposed electrical systems in some liveaboard dive boats. So minimize what you have to take to charge. Charge only in the approved area on the boat, which hopefully is an isolated area that might have some thermal protection, some fire detection abilities, and something that's monitored by the watch on regular intervals all night while you're sleeping, because you might be sleeping below decks beneath that charging area. So manufacturer approved chargers only, because they are designed specially with thermal cutoff circuits and things that are important for lithium batteries. Don't charge anything in your cabin, not even your cell phone. Charge that only in the approved charging area on the vessel. Unplug things that aren't being charged, and make sure your boat has a real secure night watch that's checking every half hour. So fire safety is really important, which also includes the fact that you need to have an escape plan. If you're especially below decks, every boat should have a practice session before you leave the dock. They should be rehearsing evacuation procedures, muster procedures, how and where you get off the boat in the event of a fire. But you should also practice the evacuation from your berth. So if you're below decks, there might be one stairwell, and then there's an alternate evacuation through a hatch. You might have to climb a ladder. Well, go try it. Leave your bunk, count the steps to the ladder, climb the ladder, make sure the hatch is unobstructed, and know what part of the boat you'll be in once you come through that hatch, so then you can escape. Make sure you've practiced that. Time it. Do it with your eyes closed, so that if you need to navigate and escape in the night, you can. Okay, now from that scary stuff back to more practical tips like drying gear. There's not a lot of places to dry things on a boat, and sometimes it's out in the wind on the railing. So take some clothespins or wide clamps that can clamp over a railing to secure your gear while it's driving. Or drying, not driving. Hydration and waste. Take a water bottle. Try not to use disposable items. Try to reuse whatever you can. Like, stay hydrated. But also think about other ways that you might be using waste on the boat. If there are disposable items, can you take them home? Like used batteries, used oxygen sensors, even trash. Can you package that up and take it home and recycle it properly? Because in some remote locations, they may not have the opportunity to dispose of things in a way that supports conservation efforts. Sleep comfort. Once you know the boat that you're going on, check out what the sleeping situation is. Maybe you're in a companionway where other people are in bunks and you're going to hear everything. So earplugs, eye masks, a headlamp. Like, you may be getting out of a berth and then walking to another part of the boat to use the restroom in the night. A headlamp is really helpful for that. If you have a CPAP machine and need that for sleep apnea, is there a place that you are allowed to safely plug that in at night and use it? So think about how you're going to sleep comfortably. Communications, both on board and with home, can be quite critical. Before you leave home, make a list for your emergency contact your loved ones that includes your sail plan, destinations, and contact information for the boat or hotels that you'll be staying at. Do a little research on local consular services in case you need them, like maybe there's an earthquake and infrastructure's destroyed and you need the support of your government to get you home. That's when you might use consular services, or if you have an injury that needs support for repatriation. Other communications like your iPhone, like, do you know how that works as an emergency satellite phone? Try that out. Some people carry in-reach beacons, and so their loved one can track them. And those can be really handy, but do be aware that some countries don't allow GPS trackers to be legally brought into the country, and they could land you in jail in some of those places. So make sure those types of trackers are permitted, allowed, and covered in the area that you're going to. Finally, once you're on the boat, think about diving smart and not hard. So on my trip on Truckmaster's Taka last week, there were a lot of dives available to everybody, but we planned an itinerary that kind of ramped people up and then tapered off at the end to, maximize safety. Also with like 4 to 5 hour surface intervals in between dives to lessen the likelihood of a bends hit. Some Liveaboards will offer prizes for the iron diver that does every dive on the trip. We don't do that with Dirty Dozen or on the Truckmaster. We would rather people take a dive off if they're jet lagged or feeling unwell or just need a bit of a break. So you don't have to do every single dive. And finally, tipping. After you've had an extraordinary trip, there are a lot of people that have made that possible. Generally, you need cash for tips. Find out what currency is the best thing. It's often American currency, but there might be other ways that you can tip as well. Maybe you can bring some older dive gear like your fins and leave them behind with somebody who could really use some support with diving gear. Maybe you can pack clothing that could be left behind with local people that would benefit from having that. Or, maybe you can also like tip in kind, by doing outreach, or bringing first aid supplies for the boat or the local community. So there are lots of ways to say thank you and be grateful as a tourist in somebody else's world. Those tips, support, and outreach can be very critical. So I love liveaboard diving because it's so nice and easy to park over a wreck and jump in and have an incredible experience. But some of these tips will make your trip a little bit more memorable and hopefully safer. So thanks for joining me today. And if you're interested in learning more, you can go to my website at intotheplanet.com. And also, please subscribe to my weekly free newsletter, The Explorer's Mindset. That's at explorersmindset.substack.com. explorersmindset.substack.com. Thanks. See you again.